Everyone knows that the Harry Potter movies were insanely popular and successful, making nearly $10 billion in theaters over a decade. Now that's a lot of money, but did you know that the Harry Potter movies were even more powerful and influential than that? They were so powerful that they actually changed the laws in the United Kingdom. The year was 2000, and planning had begun on the making of the first film, Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. The creators felt it was very important for a movie series that was so distinctly British to be filmed in the UK. The problem was, it probably wasn't going to work out. The child labor laws in the UK for actors were very strict at the time. Now obviously, child labor laws are important, but the UK laws were so restrictive for children actors that they could only act for a few hours a day. That would mean that a movie like Harry Potter would be impossible to shoot, because half a dozen of the main characters were children. It simply couldn't work, which meant that the very British Harry Potter movies were going to be filmed in America instead. But then at the last minute, something changed. There was a big push among British government representatives to literally change the law, and it worked. The UK still has child labor laws, but they were made more reasonable, mostly in an attempt to keep the very profitable Harry Potter franchise from choosing a different country as its production home. And the rest is history. It's rare that a movie has such an impact on the world that it can actually make countries change their laws. But even though it's rare, it does happen. One of the reasons is because movies are very good at presenting an argument in an entertaining way. Getting people to pay attention is the first step to bringing about change. In 1988, a filmmaker named Errol Morris made the documentary The Thin Blue Line. It was about a miscarriage of justice when a man was sent to jail for years because of the murder of a police officer that he did not commit. The documentary presented the testimony and evidence, showing clearly that the man was innocent and the evidence pointed to someone else. That documentary made big waves in the legal world, leading to the reopening of the case. And after 12 years of serving time for a crime he did not commit, the man was cleared of that crime and released from jail. There are many examples of documentaries leading to social and legal change, but it's far less likely that a fictional film makes a powerful enough impression to change the law. It does happen though. In 1956, a famous and talented Japanese director named Kenji Mizoguchi released a film called Street of Shame. He was known for making films with strong and compassionate social commentary, and Street of Shame explored the lives of 5 women who were forced through desperation and lack of finances to embark on a life of prostitution in a brothel to survive. The director's intent with the film was to create a compassionate look at the struggles of sex workers in the hopes that the social stigma against them could be broken and the public would learn to see them as people. Instead, the government saw the film as a threat to the status quo that treated prostitutes like social rejects, so they decided to enact laws that did the exact opposite of what Mizoguchi was trying to accomplish with his film. Because the film was well received and well reviewed and it was a box office success, the government reacted by making prostitution completely illegal in Japan. Instead of creating the awareness and empathy the director hoped for, the film instead led to even more harsh government punishment. Marilyn Monroe had a short and tragic career in Hollywood, but did you know that she is responsible for the downfall of the unreasonably strict contracts that Hollywood studios used to have with their stars? All the way up until the 1950s, studios held all the power over the actors they worked with. The studios decided what movies they would be in, what public appearances they could do, and even whether they were allowed to appear on TV or in a Broadway play. But everything changed after the release of The 7-Year Itch, starring Marilyn Monroe. It was a gigantic hit for the studio 20th Century Fox, due mostly to Monroe's appearance. The studio wanted to sign a new contract with her, and that's when she made a very smart business decision that changed the legal landscape of Hollywood forever. She asked for the biggest raise that a female star had ever received, and she got it. But she also had it written in her contract that she could work with whoever she wanted, and she didn't need the studio's permission to do it. That meant whatever director or studio she liked, she could make movies with them. It was unheard of for a Hollywood actor, but she was so famous that the studio eventually agreed. But once the word spread that she got that amazing contract deal, every big name in Hollywood wanted the same freedom. Studios had no choice but to follow 20th Century Fox's lead, and soon, the power of the studio system to control an actor's career started to weaken, all because Marilyn Monroe took that first step. And one of the most powerful changes that Hollywood brought about because of a film was due to the 1947 movie The Snake Pit. It was based on a true story of a woman's experience in American mental institutions, and the movie exposed much of the abuse and deprivation that patients in psychiatric institutions suffer at the hands of the employees and doctors due to the fact that the public had no idea. The Snake Pit changed all of that. It was a big hit when it came out, garnering 7 Oscar nominations and changing the national conversation around mental health facility care. Many of the treatments used in the facilities, from electroshock therapy and straitjackets to ice baths and abusive practices, were scrutinized by a scandalized public. After the release of the movie and its popular reception, half the states in the US passed laws improving treatment for mental patients. In the early days of Hollywood, there was a time when dangerous scenes in movies could frequently lead to the deaths of actors involved in making them. It was one movie in particular whose tragic on-set deaths changed the laws regarding film safety. In 1927, director Michael Curtiz made a biblical adaptation of Noah's Ark. There was, of course, an elaborate and epic flood scene, but the director hadn't taken the time to put good safety measures in place. From that one scene, over a dozen people received injuries like broken bones and leg amputations. But the real tragedy was the death of 3 crew members during the filming of The Flood. The director was not punished for it because there were no laws in place that required him to be safer in the filming. And that is when new safety laws governing what can and cannot be done during stunt sequences was passed less than a year after the tragedy that happened during this film. Have you ever noticed in the closing credits of movies where it says, "No animals were harmed during the making of this movie"? The reason that movies now say that is because there are strict laws in place governing what you are allowed to have animals do in a film, and there are experts who come to the set to monitor the films and make sure. The reason for that rule is a 1936 film called The Charge of the Light Brigade. It's a war film, and during one of the epic battle sequences, the director had a plan for a huge stunt sequence involving 125 horses. He told the stunt team to rig all of the horses to tripwires that would cause them all to be flipped over or yanked to the ground at a key moment in the epic battle scene. During the shooting of the sequence, many of the horses were severely injured. 25 of them were hurt so badly that they had to be put down. Thankfully, the star of the movie, Errol Flynn, heard what had happened during the shoot, and he was infuriated at the horrible treatment of the horses. He called the American Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, or the ASPCA, and asked them to come to the set. When news of the incident reached the public, there was a huge negative outcry and backlash against the people making the film. As a result, Congress passed animal safety laws for all American studio films, and that's why you see that message in the credits today. But the biggest legal change in movie history was when objectionable content such as foul language and nudity was allowed to be in movies in American theaters. For many years, the Motion Picture Production Code had rules about what you could and could not show in a film. The code prevented nudity, profanity, and even other things like suggestive dancing and criminals shown in a good light or being allowed to get away with a crime. But then in 1966, a British film called Blow Up was released. It was the height of the 60s free love movement, and the film featured sex and nudity, drug use, and even murder. The American movie studio MGM wanted to release it in the US, but they knew it wouldn't pass the production code. Before, they would have been forced to censor and edit the film for release. Instead, they decided to create a brand new company to release the film. Because it had never agreed to abide by the production code, it released the movie exactly as it was, nudity, language, and all. The movie became a big hit in the US as well as in the UK, proving that audiences were willing to watch and were even interested in stories that depicted adult themes and content. That was the beginning of the end for the production code, as more films found ways to reach audiences without censorship. Eventually, the production code was ended, and it was replaced with the current rating system that movies have today. Most people think of movies as merely entertainment, but more than once, films have been responsible for bringing attention to a problem and changing the national conversation so drastically that the laws themselves are rewritten to accommodate the change in public perception. If you want even more surprising secrets about how the law interacts with the things you do every day, be sure to like and subscribe. That's it for this episode of No Way That's Legal. We'll see you next time.